You're with the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us. If you're looking to travel without stretching your budget, especially as gas prices go back up, look no further. This summer, we are spotlighting destinations within a short drive of Northeast Ohio with our series Easy Day Away. The main criteria is the area has to be close enough that a visit doesn't require an overnight stay. Our first installment featured Chautauqua and Jamestown in New York, both of which are just over a 2-hour drive from Cleveland. For today's Easy Day Away, we're staying in Ohio, featuring Dayton and Yellow Springs in the southwestern part of the state. Both of those are just about 3 hours drive away from Cleveland and Canton, and an hour drive west of Columbus. Whether you're looking to learn more about Dayton's history as the birthplace of aviation, or maybe enjoy a scenic hike along the Yellow Spring at the Glen Helen Nature Preserve in Yellow Springs, these cities have plenty to offer for a quick visit or an extended stay if you would like to do that. We'll talk about Dayton first. Joining me now, we have Destination Dayton President and CEO John Oney. John, welcome to the Sound of Ideas.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you being with us. If you and our audience would like to join this conversation, maybe you've been to Dayton, or maybe you have some questions about Dayton that you'd like to get answered, you can give us a call at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, or you can message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, John, Dayton is known as the birthplace of aviation and the home of Wilbur and Orville Wright. So tell us, how does Dayton honor that aviation history in a way that visitors can experience it?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, with being the birthplace of aviation, you probably have to be able to back that up with some things to do. And what we're very proud of having here is such a rich history, but the ability to get up close and personal in the lives of Orville and Wilbur through museums, to get up close and personal with what their innovation has become over the years, in the fact that you can visit the U.S. Air Force, the National Museum, and see 350 airplanes all in one place. So it's this idea of not just being the birthplace of aviation, but the ability to come see it, learn about it, experience what it was like in the early 1900s, in 1903, when flight became a reality, controlled flight became a reality. So we're really excited to have that opportunity to showcase that to our visitors, and it's something that leaves a lasting impression, not just on families, but on young people who may be inspired to want to do something in aviation in the future.
Sure. John, we know there is a bit of a rivalry with Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, over being first in flight since the Wright brothers technically made their first flight there, but they were born in the Dayton area. How does the city recognize those shared bragging rights? Are there any nods to Kitty Hawk in any of the history that we see around Dayton related to the brothers?
Oh, I love a good competition story. I think obviously Kitty Hawk has a place in the history. Um, but what's different about Dayton is the fact that Orville and Wilbur were born here. They grew up here. They innovated here. They tinkered here. They started out, you know, with a printing press, and started with building bicycles. That tinkering kind of led to the whole idea of controlled flight. And so, yeah, is there competition? Yes, but I think there's always room for that. I would say, hey, if you're thinking about going to Kitty Hawk, then the very next month you should come to Dayton.
Sure. And for the brothers, the Wilbur and Orville Wright brothers, are there historical spaces where people can go and learn more about them there? Like, for example, their birthplace. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, there's a really unique opportunity to not only see their childhood home, but to learn a little bit more about Orville and Wilbur at the Orville and Wilbur Interpretive Center, along with the Paul Lawrence Dunbar exhibit there. It's the only national park in our area. It's in downtown, and it's an opportunity for folks to go and learn more about what was happening in the early 1900s that made this happen, but also what was happening that made this so unique. It really launched the entire um, patents and invention scene that we know about today. It gives visitors the opportunity to embrace not only the history, but to learn more about Orville and Wilbur as humans and their relationship with 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 Paul Dunbar. So it's really interesting to see that all in one place. Again, National Park right in downtown Dayton. So we're pretty blessed to have that opportunity here.
Mm. And you mentioned the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. We know that it just celebrated its 103rd anniversary. Can you tell us how the museum has changed since it's opened over that long run?
Yeah, I'm kind of learning myself, and I think the staff here at Destination Dayton know this. But I've been here for 7 months, and I decided for my first vacation to do a staycation because I really wanted to learn everything I could about the region. And for a couple of days, I spent my time at the museum, at the Air Force Museum, and I learned about the timeline and how it has grown significantly over the years. It started out with one hangar, then two, then three and four, and so now you've got this experience where you could go for a couple hours, sure, but you can also come back the next day and see more. And so it's pretty special what the vision has been at the Air Force Museum and what it means to the community. Um, I read recently that that attraction brings in upwards of 800,000 visitors a year. That's significant visitation that from folks from all across the land, not just from Cleveland or the state, but we're talking regional, international visitors coming to Dayton and this region for that attraction. It's pretty special.
Mm. Tell us a little bit more about that staycation, John. That's a special experience to get to really know the new city that you're spending time in. What are some of the other things you did while you were exploring your home?
Yeah, I spent my wife and I spent a significant amount of time on the trails. So we're known for 340 paved bicycle trails here in the region. So we spent a lot of time getting on the bikes and going exploring. I've never been to a place where I can explore my own downtown along a riverway. So that was pretty special. You hop on the bike, you ride a little bit, you get off the bike, you go have some coffee and have some tea or chocolates in downtown, then get back on the bike again and continue. And so we're really big fans of the outdoors, and we understand why the outdoors are so important. So, having a chance to visit um, the Five River Metro Parks here is pretty special. So we spent time trying to knock off. I think there's 13 here in our region, and I think we knocked off about 10 of those. So everything from the Cox Arboretum to Wegersend Park uh, to Riverscape, which is in right downtown here in Dayton. A lot of fun things to do. We went to a baseball game. The Dayton Dragons were so much fun to see. It's not just baseball; it's a family-friendly night. It's a great way to get the family out there and spend some quality time. And then the culinary scene here, I think, is pretty special. So we spent some time exploring the new places to eat for my wife and I. We spent some time in some museums. Um, the Boone Shop Museum of Discovery was one. We loved going there to see how that's evolved over the years. And then one thing still on my bucket list, and it should be on your bucket list as well, is the giant Thomas Dambo trolls at the Allwood Audubon area. That's pretty neat. I think we've all seen those large trolls that are sculpted out of, I believe they're out of wood. But I think that's definitely on our bucket list. So many things to do. And once we start talking about that, you can't not talk about the art scene here. The art scene in downtown Dayton and the region, especially, is pretty special. We did get to see a show, Beetlejuice show at the Schuster, one of the evenings, and that was incredible. So everything you're looking for in sort of that big city package, but also in that small town feel, is right here in Dayton. And so we spent the entire week of our vacation just exploring our own new hometown.
For those who are baseball fans, of course, you mentioned the Dayton Dragons. That feeds into the Cincinnati Reds Major League Baseball team. We are no stranger to the minor league baseball system here in Northeast Ohio. The Five Rivers Metro Parks. Tell us a little bit more about that. What makes those so special as a Metro Park system?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm an outdoors person. I believe in the power of what the outdoors can do, not just for visitors, obviously, but for the quality of life of our residents. And so, um, having just a variety of different types of parks in one region, to me, is pretty special. It's not unlike many other places where you might get a certain type of park in one region. Here in Dayton, in our surrounding region, you may have prairie lands that you can go look at. You may have a smaller, quaint park that's more like an arboretum to look at special flowers and plants. But really, what's unique about that is the ability to make a decision. It's free to the family. It's an opportunity to do something different every single day, get outside, experience what this region has to offer in the most unique way, and that really comes back to the environment. I love the fact that, if you want to do some fishing, if you want to do some cycling, if you want to just go for a stroll and do some forest bathing, it's all here in Dayton. It's a great way to get away. It's a great opportunity to get outside, enjoy yourself and your family, and reconnect. So the Five Rivers Metro Parks do that for us. We're so grateful for the vision and the leadership of that organization, making sure that they have high quality parks for our visitors, for our stakeholders, but most importantly for our residents. We can't thank them enough.
Sure. And speaking of the residents and the people who are there year round, what are some of the things that are happening year round, maybe on an annual basis in Dayton, that people could potentially plan an easy day away around? Are there any festivals or gallery events or anything that happen in the public space that people should know about?
I'm glad you asked that. We kind of talk about ourselves as a festival attraction. We do a lot of festivals here, a lot of support from the community. So we've got the Celtic Festival coming up. We've got the Downtown Art Show coming up. I think that's August 6th through the 8th, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 6th through the 9th. Amazing opportunity to get outside, see some local artists, and stroll around. Um, we've got every single year we've got some major signature events that I think Dayton is known for, and that is the NCAA. Used to be called the First Four. Now it's called the Opening Rounds. That happens in February and March. I'm sorry, March of every year, and so we're host to that again next year, and we welcome folks from all across the country into Dayton for a couple days of basketball at its most elite level with the NCAA. Followed that up by the WGI Color Guard Championships, which brings in a tremendous amount of participants and athletes from around the country. So that always happens in the spring as well. So I think, you know, each year you'll have a consistent signature event to come to. You can plan your little vacation around that event to see more. Some of the best ideas that I've ever heard where people would, come to Dayton maybe for the first time to see the First Ford, to see WGI, or to see one of the festivals, and then they decide they want to come back for vacation, or they want to come back for a business trip. And so that's what this is all about. This is all about showcasing what we have here in this region, and it's pretty special. Once we get people here, they realize what a special place we have. So yeah, some of those events attract thousands and thousands of people every single year, and we're just so grateful for our partners and our community to welcome those folks in.
John, on Destination Dayton's website, there is a statement about inclusion indicating that diversity is a core value for Dayton. Can you tell us how that is executed and diversity is celebrated in Dayton day to day?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, number one, we have to welcome everyone, right? We want to welcome everyone. We are made up. This city and this region is made up of a diverse set of um, communities, and we only thrive when we're all working together and making everyone feel welcome. So, um, you know, we have fantastic partners in downtown Dayton partnership with the city of Dayton, with the county, Montgomery County, who all work together to be sure that these programs are in place, that we can welcome folks from all ethnicities, all walks of life, to make sure that they feel welcome here. And our residents are proud to be a part of a community like that. So it's pretty special. Um, and we look forward to continue that support in the future.
Mm. And John, have you gotten acquainted with the nickname of the city of Dayton being the Gem City yet in your time there?
I have gotten acquainted. I've heard a few different stories about how the Gem City uh, term came along, but yeah, I have heard that. Yes.
Yeah, and so from my understanding, there was an 1845 article, August 1845. This goes to show you that journalism is the first draft of history. This was in the Cincinnati Daily Chronicle describing Dayton as the gem of our interior towns. Now, there may be other stories as to where that nickname may have come from, but that's at least one of them that we can point to that's documented from 1845. I know you told us a little bit about you experiencing the city of Dayton. Is there a hidden gem that you'd like to tell us about? Maybe something you wouldn't find on a tourism website?
Oh, great question. Oh my gosh. Um, well, that's the best part about being here in Dayton. We talk about discovering the unexpected all the time. That's sort of our thing. And you never know what rock you'll uncover, or what what cool item you'll see without even realizing it. So I guess for me, some of the hidden gems, and I'm not trying to cop out on this question, but the hidden gems are really the people.
Mm.
It's amazing to me as a new person here to the region, um, coming from the East Coast, the ability to experience the culture, the ability to experience different events in a way that's warm and welcoming. We talk about this Midwestern hospitality or this Midwestern charm a lot. And I have to say that, to me, that's been the gem. It's the people. It's not a specific place. It's not a restaurant, although there are gems out there uh, in those categories. But for me, it's been the people that is the hidden gem, that
Mm.
once visitors come, they realize, wow, not only is Dayton pretty cool, but the people are very nice and very welcoming. And that's something we have to continue. That is something that I certainly didn't do. Destination Dayton didn't do. That's something that is instilled in this community. And I think that goes back to your question about being welcoming, um, a welcoming community. It's the people.
Mm. Well, I can tell you that we do know our technical producer, Chris Dudley's brother, lives in Dayton and loves it there. So I do believe, based on what I know of Chris, that that is surely a gem in your city as well. So I'm with you on the people of Dayton being something special, John. Last question for you before we say goodbye in our conversation about Dayton. Say someone wants to do it like a local. What's the last thing you did on a day off? Where would you go? What would you recommend to someone? One thing.
One thing.
Hmm.
Um, Oh gosh, I'm a sports guy, and I have to say, one thing is you have to experience a Dayton Dragons game. Just the opportunity to get out there, um, and grab a hot dog, grab a pretzel, maybe a beverage of your choice, and just sit and watch and listen to the sounds of the game. I don't think it gets any more basic than that, but it's something that you will remember. Um, And so I would say head out to the ballpark.
All right. Dayton Dragons game, classic summer for an easy day wait in Dayton. John Oney, President and CEO of Destination Dayton, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, now we'll learn about the nearby neighbor Yellow Springs, about 30 minutes from Dayton, longtime home of comedian Dave Chappelle. With us now to talk about this, we have the Glen Helen Association Executive Director, Nick Budis. Hi, Nick.
Hello, how are you?
Great, thanks for being with us. We also have taproom manager at Yellow Springs Brewery, Carly Kombuski. Hi, Carly.
Hi, guys.
Thanks for being with us. Now, Nick, the Glen Helen Nature Preserve is home to the Yellow Spring, the namesake. What makes this mineral spring so special and how it became the name for the city?
Sure, it's a cool spring. It's pumps out 60 gallons a minute of clear water, but it's coming from a underground source that has a lot of iron and a lot of calcium. So as soon as the water hits daylight, that calcium comes out and has created a giant orange mound that the spring sits on. And over the years, people have learned that the water, because it's so iron rich, was a desirable source of nutrients. So the spring itself was first a destination for weary travelers, or even before that for Native Americans who were in the area. Later, the area around the Yellow Spring became a resort for folks attracted to the iron-rich water and the idea that those offered kind of curative effects. And that was all over the course of the 1800s, 150 or so years ago. So gradually, the town of Yellow Springs built up around the Yellow Spring itself, where the Yellow Spring itself ended up in an area that was protected and became the core of Glen Helen Nature Preserve.
Speaking of Glen Helen Nature Preserve, what should we know about the namesake of the Nature Preserve, Glen Helen?
Yeah, really interesting question. We recognized last year the 100th anniversary of the passing of our namesake. She was a poet, a composer, and a patron of the arts named Helen Birch Bartlett. Perhaps other than the fact that we honor her with Glen Helen, perhaps best known for a incredibly powerful collection of paintings that are held at the Art Institute of Chicago that include pieces by Picasso and Monet, and the most famous of all, a Sunday afternoon on the Isle of La Grande Jatte, a pointillist masterpiece that is regarded as the most famous French painting not in France. And Helen acquired that with her husband, donated all of these pieces to the Art Institute of Chicago, where they've been on display ever since. Helen died young. She died in her early 40s, and her father sought to memorialize her by purchasing the land and donating it so that the public would always have access, and it would always be protected as a nature preserve in memorial to her.
So if you're walking around that nature preserve, I imagine you might get a little bit thirsty. So Carly, tell us a little bit about the Yellow Springs beer scene, particularly Yellow Springs Brewery.
We like to say that we brew exceptional beer every day and every batch. We flourish and play in the outdoors, and we're located right along the Little Miami Scenic Trail, which runs along Glen Helen. So we get lots of cyclists, joggers, lots of hikers that just need a little refreshment, and they can just walk in right off the trail and come have one of our beers.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So there are two main rooms, the tap room and the barrel room. Tell us about these different rooms and what they offer for visitors.
They're actually two different locations. The tap room is right off the trail on Walnut Street, right in town. And this is where our production facility is and our main tap room, so our original location. And that's where the beer is made, the ideas come up, and then the tap room is just where everyone gathers to get to experience what was made next door. And then just about a mile up the road on 68 is the barrel room. The Barrel Room opened to the public in 2021, but it's mainly used as not only our warehouse storage, but also our private event space. Hosts book those out for, wedding receptions, baby showers, bridal showers, company holiday parties, all sorts of events. And we also host public events at least once a month.
Okay. Let's go back to the Glen Helen Nature Preserve, Nick. It's the first educational forest in Ohio. What does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So Glen Helen has a number of firsts. One of them is that just coming out of the Great Depression, um, uh, there were lots of experiments in forestry, and our region was no exception to that. So a big grove of pine trees was planted there, and when those pine trees reached a certain age, people started coming into the preserve and cutting them down to bring them home and put them in their living room with ornaments on top. And because the Glen had just become a nature preserve at that point, that was a big old no-no. So my predecessor's predecessor forged a relationship with the local schools with the idea that the children would do two things. One, they would protect the trees that were growing in this newly planted forest plantation. And then on a separate area of the Glen, the kids themselves would start to plant trees that they could then turn into a cut your own Christmas tree market. So the school children in the local schools, over a course of a period, one cohort of kids would plant the trees, but it would be their younger siblings that would have a role years down the way, working with families to cut them. So that's something that's been going on in the Glen since the 1940s, and the kids that participate have an amazing outdoor experience and also learn something about the practice of forestry.
Mm. Nick, can you tell us about the Raptor Center and what that
Yeah,
space is
yeah.
used for?
The school forest is one of our programs, but there's several others, including our Raptor Center. We have a facility that's designed to train people to be wildlife educators and wildlife rehabilitators. And along the way, we take in upwards of 200 injured or orphaned or starving hawks, owls, eagles, falcons, vultures. And we work to rehabilitate them when possible, to release them for a second chance at life in the wild. And we keep at the Raptor Center grounds um, healthy but unreleasable birds that represent all of the different birds of prey that you might find in Ohio, so that folks can have an up close and personal experience with them, and marvel at the diversity of Ohio wildlife.
Mm. Carly, I want to ask about the art installations in the tap room on the walls. What was the vision behind that?
Yeah, so our one of our co-owners and co-founders, Lisa, she's an artist herself, and I'm not entirely sure how it all started with her, but just knowing Lisa, I can't really imagine her being in a space every day that's not filled with art, as well as Yellow Springs just being a very like art-centric community. So every 6 weeks, we bring a local artist in. They hang their show, all different types of media too. Um, and we just give them a space to show and possibly sell their work. It gives them some exposure and it keeps things really fun and interesting in the tap room. Sometimes we can have acrylic painters with the most colorful pieces that are just filling the walls. And then 6 weeks later, it's more of a subdued, darker, smaller pieces. So it's just really fun to see how it can change from event to event.
So we do know that the Glen Helen Nature Preserve and the Yellow Springs Brewery are both along the Little Miami Scenic Trail, kind of speaking to the connectedness of the community in Yellow Springs. Carly, I want to ask you, speaking of a connected community, it's been reported that Dave Chappelle is very engaged, has invested a lot in his hometown, is a big supporter of public media there with WYSO. Is it true that he's often hosting impromptu events for the public in the Yellow Springs area?
Yeah, he's been doing that for a few years now, I believe, since the pandemic. He has a venue space. He doesn't have it, but he uses a venue space just right outside of town to do some outdoor shows. I think we call them cornfield shows. At least that's what I know them as. And then he opened a comedy venue at our old firehouse, which is just right along the bike trail, a very short walk from the brewery itself.
All right. Nick, what's coming up next for the Glen Helen Nature Preserve that people might want to plan an easy day away around? We've got about a minute left here.
Yeah, sure. So, summer and fall especially is a beautiful time in southwestern Ohio. We offer 15 miles of trails. Anybody coming down for a walk in the Glen will be able to get up and close to a beaver dam and pond, 400-year-old trees, waterfalls, the Yellow Spring itself, and of course, unmatched connectivity to a local community. So the idea that you can drive down from Cleveland or Canton, stop in, get a breakfast burrito that couldn't be beat, take a wonderful walk in the Glen, and then go get yourself a pint of fresh beer at the Yellow Springs Brewery or elsewhere in town. It really makes for just a wonderful day in a small town.
Nick, you were speaking my language. I have to ask you, where are you getting your breakfast burrito? Where do you go for it?
There's a breakfast establishment slash jazz venue slash bookstore called the Emporium. Wonderful breakfast burritos and a great community vibe on the weekends.
All right. Thank you for that. And Carly, what's coming up next for the tap room that people might want to plan an easy day away around?
We just got a new artist for our Art and Ales program yesterday. Her name's Rachel Hall. Her work is gorgeous. She'll have an artist reception this Thursday from 6 to 8. And then on August 21st for the Yellow Springs Art Stroll from 5 to 9, she'll be doing some live painting in there as well.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing some of Yellow Springs with us here in our Easy Day Away series. Nick Budis, Executive Director for the Glen Helen Association. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure.
And Carly Kumbuski, Taproom Manager at Yellow Springs Brewery. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie.